In this section, we're going to discuss about one of the more important parts of the annual report, something known as the management discussion and analysis. Now, as we discussed earlier, if you do nothing in an annual report, the least that you should do is probably go and read this part of the annual report if you're trying to do the analysis of a company, right? So that's important because of the information that it essentially provides us. So this section is going to focus primarily on management discussion and analysis, uh, which is going to give us an idea about a lot of the details about the company, about the industry, and in certain cases the economy as well, right? So let's understand what does management discussion and analysis have, and then we take it from there. Now, the MD&A is one of it's also known as the MD&A for management discussion and analysis. So essentially the MD&A is one of the most important parts of the annual report because it gives information about the company and the industry segment it operates in. So if you know nothing about the company and you want to try and find out, okay, what does this company really do? Where do you go? You look at the management discussion and analysis in the annual report. It sometimes also talks about the outlook for the economy and the industry in general. What are the new changes in the industry that are happening, right? So changes in the conditions, environment in which the business is being carried out. In certain cases also about government regulations, etc. You can find data around that, right? In some cases, companies also give something like a SWOT analysis for themselves. What is a SWOT analysis? Strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats around a company. So at a later point of time, you'll probably study about SWOT analysis in more detail. But some of the companies actually do that analysis for themselves for the sake of their stakeholders. And that is also available in the management discussion and analysis section. Finally, performance of the company and the data surrounding that is also kind of discussed again in the MD&A. A lot of the times, MD&A is actually combined with the director's report, right? However, most companies give a separate MD&A section. In some cases, you combine it with the director's report. In some cases, you give it as an annexure to the director's report. It is one of the best places to know about the industry. So if someone asks you to do a research on the cement sector, all you need to go is find out the top cement companies, take their annual reports, right? So find out who are the top cement companies, take the annual report and read through the MD&A section of all of them. You will get enough and more information about the cement industry. The same is true for other companies, other industries as well. So that's an important yardstick and that's an important place to kind of find information about a particular industry, about a particular segment, and hence MD&A becomes important. Sometimes it also gives information which might be relevant for you to kind of gauge how will the company perform over a period of time, right? For the purpose of understanding the MD&A, we're going to use two different reports. Obviously, we're going to continue our work on the report of Eicher Motors so that we have a completely defined document with us about all the information that is available about the company there. But at the same time, we'll also look at another company's annual report generally to understand what all documentation or what all data is actually available in the management discussion and analysis segment, right? Let's pick up the first example. We will look at the example of this company called Titan Industries, Titan in India, the watchmaker in India, right? Now, Titan actually operates across multiple business segments, and their total income in the last financial year grew from 11,000 crore to 11,974 crore. That's the jump in the total sales of the company. Now, what are the segments in which Titan is? So one part of the segment is watches, which is for what it is completely or most well known, which is the watches of Titan. But you will note that the watch segment actually contributes only 1900 crore of sales out of about 12,000 crore of sales. So that's roughly about 15 to 16% of the revenue coming from the watches segment. So the watches segment provides 15 to 16% of the revenue. Where is bulk of the revenue coming from? Bulk of the revenue is coming from the jewelry segment, right? Now, some of us may not even know about the fact that they sell this much of jewelry, which is about 9,000 odd crore, out of the entire amount, which is close to about 79 to 80% of the total income coming from the jewelry segment. And then there are some other segments as well. For example, they are into eyewear as a segment, right? Titan Eye is a known brand now in the country. Then they are into bags. They are into bags and accessories that are available across the spectrum. That's, however, a small segment. So the others segment is about 4 to 5% of the total revenue, right? Now, if we knew nothing about Titan, or if we had this notion that Titan was only about watches, what tells us is that under their brands Tanishq, and a couple of others, they have essentially the biggest chunk of their sales coming from the jewelry segment. So if something happens to the jewelry segment, if something happens to gold prices, that has a bigger impact on Titan than something happening to the watches segment, right? In spite of the fact that the most well-known branding of Titan is around the watches segment. In general, we associate Titan more with the watches segment. If you go further into this report, Titan has a very detailed management discussion and analysis segment given, where if you actually look at individual segments, they go and talk about the industry, they talk about the economy, and they then talk about individual segments and how they have been doing as well, right? I've taken excerpts from that so that we look at some parts and try and understand what those parts are. Obviously, reading everything at this juncture may not be possible, but yeah, we will look at specific parts around that. So let's look at the management discussion and analysis from the Titan annual report for 2014-15 financial year. They first start with the discussion on economics, right? So they talk about a lot of things which, for example, work that GDP is expected to grow at 6.3% as per the old estimates of GDP, which would correspond to something around 7.5% as what we see in the current fiscal from an estimated GDP growth of last year of 5.5. Inflation is falling, prices are falling, and is averaging around the 6% mark, right? So that's where part of the economic scenario is. Then they talk about a couple of other things. What are the key drivers for them? Now, these guys sell consumer items, right? Consumer items is what they sell. So consumer spending is what is necessary, right? And so low inflation leaves more money with people because prices are low, and stable currency is expected to drive discretionary spends up. Add to this data points like in the recent times we are saying things like pay commission is going to increase salary of the government employees. That would leave a higher disposable income. When we say disposable income, income that can be spent in the hands of people, and then obviously higher discretionary spends as well, which will result in a bigger demand or could result in a bigger demand. That's what Titan expects to happen. So this is how the economic environment links with the performance of the company, right? They also talk about a large untapped opportunity has emerged in middle India towns, tier 3 and tier 4, where consumer aspirations are comparable to tier 1 towns, but access is restricted. This is being tapped by a rise in E and M commerce, e-commerce in the form of websites like Flipkart, Amazon, etc., and M commerce in the form of mobile commerce, fueled by the smartphone penetration in these cities, right? So sudden demand has come up from tier 3 and tier 4 towns, which presents opportunities as well as challenges for a company like Titan, right? Let's talk about it. Growing economic independence and rise of working women segment is leading to greater demand of brands like Tanishq and Raga. Tanishq is the jewelry segment brand, and Raga is the watches segment for women. Youth segment is large, and their aspirations are growing rapidly as well. And hence, with their brands around Fast Track and Sonata, Superfiber, the company is well placed to tap these opportunities. So brands across consumer categories is what Titan has tried to build. And that's important because typically brands have a lasting impact, right? Then they talk about e-commerce has grown substantially last year, backed by an almost endless amount of foreign capital. So a lot of international money came in, and that resulted in discounts and all those kind of things. The company is seeing this both as an opportunity for its brands to tap new channel and a potential disruption on the exclusive brick and mortar retail stores. What do we mean by brick and mortar retail stores? The ones which are actually stores, right? Instead of that, anyone with a website now actually is a competent for the retail space, right? And that's both an opportunity because Titan will be able to explore these channels and probably use these channels and sell the stuff over these channels, or create a channel like this of their own, which opens up tier 3, tier 4 towns. Websites are also less capital intensive, right? If you open a store, you have to open a store in the most premium location in the city, right? That is how this presents an opportunity. At the same time, there's a potential disruption chance. Why? Because if you are already someone who has a lot of stores, then suddenly that entire reach is worth not as much, because someone else can immediately tap the reach using just the online channels, right? What else do they talk about? They talk about the watches segment, and talk. Let's look at what do they talk about watches segment in more detail. Competitor brands like Fossil, Casio, mostly Swiss brands, and all other fashion brands continue to expand their retail presence. But the main challenge for Titan remains the fight for share of wallet with other consumer durables, right? Now, while other watchmakers also came in, other consumer durables came in. Remember, the watches segment has been hit severely by the mobile segment, right? And then recently, the smartwatch concept that came in because of the telecom giants, that has again kind of created a more potential disruption in the category, right? So one, mobiles were a problem. Now smartwatches have also come in to kind of disrupt the traditional watches segment, because this kind of combines the two, right? Emergence of e-commerce as a significant channel manifested itself strongly during the year. E-commerce has in many ways changed shopping behavior, where many consumers now research and select products on e-commerce and then go into the stores where they compare prices before buying, right? Because of this, the cost of research on a product before buying has gone down because of e-commerce, and discounting behavior has kind of taken hold. Unless something gets discounted, that creates a problem for it being sold unless it is discounted, right? Then what has Titan done? Over 40 stores have been renovated and have taken the new retail identity. They have called exclusive brand outlet called Word of Titan Chain. And with this total 151 stores carry the new identity. Multi-brand outlets, MBOs, are concerned. The new look shop in shops, which is essentially there is an existing outlet where multiple brands are being sold. Within this, the Titan thing will open a small shop here, right? So there are 120 outlets have been given this part, and with this total 250 multi-brand outlets have shop-in-shops that are available. The division continued to expand retail footprint, taking Word of Titans to 419, Fast Track stores to 161, and multi-brand Helios store. Helios is the watch segment, multi-brand store around that, to 42, right? Now, what are the opportunities, threats, and risk? When Titan dominates the watch market in India, competition in the form of international watch and fashion brands, the need to make even larger investments to capture share of voice and wallet, limited headroom for growth, and a consumer increasingly looking for offers and discounts. These are the key threats to watch in the watch business, right? And obviously, the smartwatch by Apple and other global technology majors is something that could lead to a convergence of watches and wearable wrist devices, and that may have a potential disruption scenario as well for someone like Titan, right? So it does not give definitive comments about what Titan is doing about it, because that would possibly be you know information that is sensitive. They don't want to divulge all of that, but at least this gives a fair idea about how do you go about looking for the industry of watches if you were to evaluate a company in the watches segment, right? Then they also talk a little bit about the eyewear segment, where they say that eyewear industry in India has grown at a CAGR of 16% over the last 5 years. In last year, however, there was a slowdown. Then Titan Eye Plus grew at a healthy rate of 24% over the previous year. There are other parameters as well, but Titan seems to be capturing market share. This is also a fairly unorganized segment in India, which means there are a lot of local players in each of the cities. Titan is trying to become the major organized retailer in the eyewear segment as well, right? So that's what Titan's endeavor is. This is all the information that is available from the annual report management discussion and analysis part of Titan. If you go through this in more detail, you will find much more information that is available about the jewelry segment, about other segments that they have as well, and what are the strengths and weaknesses on those areas as well. So all this information is clearly available, and then they also talk about finally what kind of expansion they have done to the stores, what is the number of stores that they have, what is the area in square foot of all the stores that they have, right? So Titan Eye Plus servicing centers, they have set up multiple servicing centers as well, which augment the ability of them to actually service client request or customer request. So if you want all the information about how many stores are there, what kind of square foot area do they have, that's all available in the management discussion and analysis segment, right? Immense amount of information about the company and the segments. That brings us to kind of a conclusion on Titan. Let's move ahead and talk about our Eicher Motors segment. Now, unlike other companies, what Eicher Motors has done is they have basically divided the MD&A part in two different parts. So they talk about the bike segment here in the MD&A, and they separately give details about the commercial vehicles on another part of the annual report. We'll discuss that as well, combining it together, because most companies would typically combine all this information together. So what is the information available? After 3 years of low growth in India, the two-wheeler industry grew at 13% in 2014. Motorcycle industry witnessed 3 years of low growth and grew by 8%. The difference between two-wheelers and motorcycles is the other scooters, etc., that get sold, right? Now, within the segments, if you see, this is in lakh units, how many motorcycles and two-wheelers have been sold. So last year, 1.32 crore units of bikes have been sold in India, and total scooters is close to about total two-wheelers is close to about 2 crore that has been sold in India, right? Now look at the growth rate in the market. Less than 125 cc bikes, 125 to 250 cc bikes, and greater than 250 cc bikes. So the gray one, the dark gray one, is the less than 125 cc, which has seen minor growth over each of the last 3 to 4 years. uh, the lighter gray is 125 to 150 cc, which had seen degrowth in 2 of the years in the last couple of years, and then growth in one of the years again, latest year. If you look at the above 250 cc, that's continued to grow every year and grown at significant pace, about 60 to 70% growth every year, right? This is the fastest growing segment, and this red segment is where Eicher operates essentially, right? And they have a 90+% market share in this segment, right? That's one big advantage that we get to know of about the growth rate within the bike segment. This was not available earlier. We now see that greater than 250 cc has continued to outpace the growth in the bike segment significantly, right? The other part is that they do talk about data points that they added nearly 100 new dealerships, taking total dealership network to 400, and it is more convenient for Royal Enfield customers to purchase and service the motorcycle now. So they are increasing their distribution footprint as well, which is important. We'll continue with our exercise of writing down some of these points which are relevant, and we'll put these in our Word document that was there. So let's quickly open that again, and let's put in the data point that two-wheeler industry growing again after 3 years of no or low growth. Then fastest growing segment is greater than 250 cc bikes, which has grown at 60 to 70% every year in the last 4 years. And Eicher Motors has a 90% plus market share in this fastest growing segment, right? India sells 1.85 crore two-wheelers and 1. Two-wheelers every year, and out of this 1.32 crore were bikes or motorcycles, right? And expanding distribution footprint for Eicher Motors. So these are the key information points that we kind of find there. Let's see what other information is available, right? Now, in the same annual report, elsewhere, they talk about, on page 108, they talk about Eicher trucks and buses, right? That's the commercial vehicles division. It's called Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles. That's the name of the entity. This has two entities. One is called as Eicher Trucks and Buses. The other is called Volvo Trucks. And then there are some small, small engineering components, etc., kind of businesses as well. Now, let's understand what's happening there. Overall domestic CV industry, 5 ton and above, grew marginally, driven by a 17.6% growth in heavy truck segment, heavy duty truck segment. Now, Eicher is not really present in that segment. Their primary segment is the domestic LMD segment and the bus segment, right? What's happened there? Within the domestic CV industry, the light and medium duty truck segment, 5 to 15 ton, where Eicher trucks and buses is a strong player, ended this year with a decline of 18.4%. This is the industry. So the total industry in LMD, light and medium duty trucks, saw a minus 18% growth. Total number of units sold were 62265 versus 76318 previous year, right? Eicher, on the other hand, so this was the industry. Eicher saw a decline of 12% and sold 20316. Because the decline of Eicher was lesser than the decline of the industry, the market share registered a growth. So there was a growth in market share to 32.6% in this segment, right? In the bus segment also similar things happened. Eicher sold 8,000 units. The industry sold lesser, 54,000 instead of 61,000, and Eicher market share went up in that segment as well, right? Then they talk about Volvo trucks as well, and that is 27% higher as compared to the previous year in terms of the total units that are there, right? Let's put in this data on our Word file as well. We are saying that domestic CV industry not growing, heavy duty trucks highest growth segment in 2014, right? Then LMD, light and medium duty trucks, industry volumes declined 18%. Eicher volumes declined 12% because they declined less than the industry. Market share jumped to 32%, right? Then buses, industry volumes declined again. Market share for Eicher jumped again, right? So these are the information points which are available in the management discussion and analysis report for Eicher Motors. Obviously, their bike segment is doing really, really well. Their truck segment is essentially the problems in the truck segment is, or commercial vehicle segment is more industry led. It's not that the company is doing something specifically wrong. It's just that the industrial growth in India is slower. And because of that, the buses and the truck segment are not doing well. As soon as the industrial growth picks up, these segments should possibly start doing better. So that's broadly what information is available in the management discussion and analysis of Eicher Motors. We can take a look at this from the annual report as well. So in the annual report on page number 18, somewhere on page number 18, they talk about annexure to director's report and management discussion analysis. This part is only for the bike segment. And then somewhere around page 108, they talk about the business highlights for Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles Limited, right? These are the business highlights. In fact, they've given a lot of charts around these as well. which could be extremely useful in us finding out what is the number of Eicher commercial vehicles growth in the last many years, right? So if we look at this chart, 38,000, 48, 48, 40, 39, and then within those segments, how much are they selling in the 5 to 10, 5 to 15 ton cargo? How much are they selling in 16 ton and above, which is a small segment for them, but is the fastest growing segment in the industry? And how much are they selling in buses? So stagnant over the last 3 years, and what kind of market share they've had, right? So their market share saw a decline in the heavy truck segment, right? Then they talk about cargo buses and exports, and Volvo trucks. What is the domestic number growth that has happened in Volvo trucks over this period? And then net income and PAT for these particular segment. You'll see net income has been steady, but profits have declined for this segment over the years. We can look at these numbers and directly try and calculate what is the price per truck as well, right? If you remember, 5794 was the somewhere around the number that we had seen earlier. If we look at the volumes about 5 years back, these volumes of trucks totally sold 5 years back in 2010 was 38,181, and the total sales number was close to 4,000 odd crore, right? So if you remember, we had put this number in where we had said that there are specific volume data points which are available. Now, in addition to these 38,000 vehicles, there must have been more vehicles in terms of what Volvo used to sell, etc. That would come in, and that would give us an idea about where is the total overall pricing per unit going to come from, right? We can use this data and arrive at price per unit of trucks as well as we go along. So that's broadly what is available in the management discussion and analysis for Eicher Motors. And broadly, that's why this is a very, very important segment in any annual report, that the least you should do is try and read as many of these as possible while trying to evaluate a company, right? That's where we're going to end this section. Our next section is now going to focus on the financial statements within the annual reports.